I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. Allison, shall we ask the generator what our word is for the week?
Yes, please.
The word of the week is duck.
Quack, quack.
Thank you, generator.
Thanks, generator. So the quick and dirty definition for duck is a water bird with a broad, blunt bill, short legs, webbed feet, and a waddling gait.
Perfect. Okay. What if it doesn't waddle?
Then it can't be a duck, apparently.
Okay.
It does describe an evocative picture.
Yes. That's the best definition I could have hoped for. Okay.
I'm glad to have provided that for you. Thank you, randomly Googling very quickly.
I go first, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is our duck topic of the podcast?
All right. So I brought something that's just chock full of ducks. It's the thing that everyone thinks of when they think of ducks, of course.
Of course.
It's Good Omens. Have you consumed the media?
I have consumed the media.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
I love Good Omens. I think I know exactly where the duck came from now.
Yep. We'll get into that, though, in my summary.
Sounds good.
To clarify, I'm going to be talking about Good Omens, the TV series, rather than the book. But the book by Neil Gaiman, it barely follows the series really well. I think they also had Gaiman as, like, one of the writers or supervisors for the show. So, like, all the beats are there. There's a lot of, like,
it's very
direct
faithful
quotes.
To it.
Yeah, they did a really good job. There's also a season 2 that they're currently filming.
Oh, man, I'm excited.
Gaiman is being very coy about it, apparently, on the internet when people ask him things.
He likes to be like that.
Yeah. So I think he's quite pleased with it, and I'm quite pleased that it's coming out, but we don't have a date yet. They're still just in the filming process. But anyway, this is the TV series. It was made in 2019 and was shown on Amazon Prime. I'm not going to go through the entire cast, but kind of the main characters that everybody loves and adores is Michael Sheen plays the angel Aziraphale, and David Tennant is Crowley the demon. And they're just the most iconic duo.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, God. I could watch David Tennant in literally anything.
Yes. And I think just, like, no one else could play these characters. They both do them so well. And it just, they're so perfect. We'll get into all of this as to how they're so perfect in a moment, though. So it's a quick watch. It's only 6 episodes long. Each episode's about an hour, though. So, you know, a good half day worth of viewing. You could do it all in one sitting.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I did, so for being honest.
I might have done it in 2, because I think I was visiting a friend out in Colorado, and we spent some of our time watching this and some of our time hiking. So we didn't do it all in one sitting. So we'll go episode by episode. I'll try and hit some of the main plot points here, and hopefully I'm not going to miss anything that comes in handy in later episodes. If I do, there'll be a lot of backtracking, but we're going to give it a go.
Hebdomonal spoiler alert, because I was told by a friend who listens that he needs the spoiler alert notice.
Okay. Fine. Spoiler alert. Good Omens coming at you with a whole summary. I'm going to spoil the whole thing.
Whole thing. All right, ready to go.
All right. So, episode 1 is called In the Beginning. It starts with the narrator God, who is talking about the creation of the earth and, like, how old it actually is. Apparently, Earth is a Libra as to when it was born. They also say, like, the dinosaur bones were just a joke that God was playing, but the paleontologists haven't figured it out yet. But then we actually start the story in, of course, the Garden of Eden. And we have Adam and Eve eating the apple because of a snake that told them to go ahead and eat that apple. And as a result, they were turned out of the garden. We then see the snake crawling up to the top of the wall around the garden where the angel Aziraphale is standing, and the snake turns into Crowley the demon. So they're both kind of standing there watching Adam and Eve leave and go encounter a lion out in the desert and everything. And, it's terrible. It's not the garden anymore. Aziraphale is, like, kind of uncomfortable being talked to by a demon and doesn't really know what to make of him at this point. And at this point, he's like, we have to uphold the dignity of God and, like, what the difference between good and evil is. And Crowley's like, well, what's really so bad about knowing the difference? Like, what's so bad about the knowledge? And Aziraphale speculates that it's not for us to know, that it's all part of the great plan, which is ineffable. That's kind of a thing that comes back again and again in the series, is that the ineffable great plan, and no one knows what's supposed to happen except that it is supposed to happen, and everything happens for a reason. So next, we fast forward to the future. We meet up with Crowley in a cemetery. He's meeting up with two other demons, Hastur and Ligor. So they're these two demons that we see a few other times in the series, but they are delivering the son of Satan, who's a little baby, to Crowley, whose duty is to then place the child with a foster family until the time of the Great War, which is set to happen in 11 years from now. So Crowley takes the little baby to a nunnery where it's basically like a nun hospital, essentially, where a lot of babies are delivered, I guess, all the time. But it's weird that these nuns, they're not actually heaven nuns, they're hell nuns.
Right.
They worship Satan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in
nuns
on the plan. Yeah. So they let Crowley in. It's no big thing. Anyway, they're also a little bit disorganized, and as a result, the baby gets placed with the wrong foster family. He was supposed to go with a family of an American diplomat, but instead he just ends up going to a little town of nowhere, of Tadfield, out in the English countryside. But Crowley does not know this. And then, after this all happens, Crowley calls up Aziraphale and says, we have to talk. And Aziraphale says, about Armageddon? And Crowley says yes, of course. This is where the duck comes in, the word of the day. There's a quote in the show, and I think also exactly the same in the book, and it says, everyone knows the best place for a clandestine meeting in London is St. James Park. They say the ducks are so used to being fed by secret agents that they've developed a Pavlovian response to them. So that's where the ducks come in, is that it's this park. They all go kind of sit around the duck pond and feed the ducks their bread. And Aziraphale and Crowley have been coming here for years to, like, meet up in secret, because they're not supposed to be associating with each other. They're an angel and demon. But anyway, they talk about the baby. They kind of make a pact with each other that if the baby were to go along with the plan that everyone has for him, then the world will be destroyed. And Crowley starts putting the seeds of doubt into Aziraphale's mind of, like, if the earth is destroyed, then everything he loves will be also destroyed, like his bookshop and his little cafes that he likes to go to where they know his name. And
Aziraphale's bookshelf is like bookshop is my favorite little place.
It is so cute.
I would live there.
Yes. Also, Aziraphale himself has developed, like, this huge taste for, like, grand, exquisite things of Earth, and he kind of dresses himself like a southern dandy, essentially. He's always wearing a little white suit, and just, like, looks really prim and proper all the time. But, he realizes that what Crowley is saying is right, that if the ineffable plan goes forward, he's gonna be just sent up to heaven, where there's just going to be celestial harmonies, none of his beloved classical music or anything like that. And then Aziraphale also kind of realizes that Crowley isn't really all that evil, per se. Like, he's kind of looking out for himself at this point, and also a little bit looking out for Aziraphale. But anyway, they decide to kind of work together. They're both going to kind of influence the child with their own things, and hopefully he'll just turn out normal. So they're watching over the child, but it's the wrong child. They still think it's the baby who went with the American diplomat. They don't realize that the real boy is in Tadfield, England. And so that little kid, he's just hanging out. He has a little gang of friends. They have this fun little hideout in the woods. And, they're just living life. They ride their bikes all over the place. And he's not good or evil. He's literally just a little kid. Gets into some mischief. but like also does what he's supposed to sometimes. So like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so fast forward 11 years, and it's set to be the start of Armageddon. And what really is going to set it off is that a hellhound is released from hell to join the baby, who is now the child, Adam, on Earth. And once he reunites with the hellhound, he will start to come into his powers, and then all hell will break loose, literally, for the war. The dog kind of comes across Adam and his friends in their little hideout, and he's describing to his friends that he wants a dog for his birthday. And they're like, well, what kind? What will he be like? And he says, oh, just like a little scruffy terrier with a cute little bark who will follow me everywhere and will be the best of friends. And so, like, this big, huge Doberman-looking hellhound, like, you see him as he's being described, he, like, shrinks, and then his hair, like, turns white, and he gets all scruffy like this cute little terrier. And then he just comes, like, running and barking into the hideout, and it's like, this is my dog! And his name is Dog. And with the naming of the hellhound, everything is now set into motion. So that's kind of the whole setup in episode 1. Episode 2, we get some more characters added in. So the first one is that we start to see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are being called by way of their weapons of war being delivered to them. And it's kind of this funny gag that there's an international delivery man who's just, like, so jovial, just doing his job, taking, like, these massive weapons to, like, the middle of nowhere. Like, in Saudi Arabia, there's a peace meeting happening, but then the Horseman of War is there. She's kind of dressed up as an international journalist, but he delivers the sword, and she's like, oh, so it has begun. And then she, like, kind of says something offhanded to one of the leaders who's meeting, and they all start fighting and kill each other, and, just kind of leaving destruction in her wake. After this, we see a flashback to the 1600s, where a witch named Agnes Nutter is about to be burned at the stake by the Protestant witch finder, Thou Shalt Not Commit Adultery, Pulsifer, which is the stupidest name.
It's the best name. I mean, Agnes Nutter is also a great name.
Yes. There's a lot of really good names in here.
Good and True Prophecies, or whatever it's called.
We'll get there in just a second.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry.
She is burned at the stake, but she had predicted this. And we learned that she was actually a very accurate prophetess, because she's written a book called The Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter. This book was then passed down through her family for generations, and each generation they try to, like, uncover what all the different numbered prophecies mean. So, like, for example, she has this one that's like, invest in the apple, and, like, for years that didn't make sense to anybody, but then, like, in the 90s they figured out it's like, oh, it's because the company Apple is gonna hit it big, so we should invest in it now. Like, that kind of thing. Like, all these kind of vague terms that you've only come to understand basically as they're happening, sort of, unless you're really smart, which the family's trying to be smart. They're trying to figure things out before they come true, so they know what's happening. But eventually the book ends, and so they know, like, something happens at the end of the book. It's probably not good, and they're getting close to the end at this point. We also meet one of Agnes's descendants, Anathema, and she's, like, in charge of finding out the prophecies right now. We also meet Sergeant Shadwell, and he is the only remaining member of the Witchfinder army. And he also has this neighbor who is a medium named Madame Tracy. How we meet Sergeant Shadwell is that we see the descendant of Thou Shalt Not Commit Adultery, Pulsifer, who is Newt Pulsifer, kind of meets Shadwell on the side of the road, and Shadwell is kind of one of those crazy people with a sign who's like, the end is near, find the witches. And somehow this, like, drags Newt in, and he's like, okay, I might as well do this. Turns out, in his backstory, Newt was a failed IT guy, because every piece of technology he ever touched somehow got more broken and destroyed than it was before he touched it. And so he's been fired from, like, all his jobs, and he's like, you know what the hell, I might as well just join up with this army and hunt witches. He doesn't really understand what's going on. Finally, in this episode, we see Aziraphale and Crowley realize that they've been watching over the wrong child because the Hellhound never showed up at the house of the American diplomat. And so they're like, this is not the real Antichrist. Where is he? And they're desperately trying to find him before heaven and hell each realize that the baby has been misplaced. And that's the end of episode 2. Moving on to episode 3. We're almost halfway done with the whole thing here. So people everywhere are looking for the Antichrist, and they're starting to kind of piece things together. Anathema, the witch, has uncovered a few prophecies that kind of lead her to England, and she's actually staying in a cottage in Tadfield. So she's almost found him at this point. She's out one night kind of searching for what she calls ley lines, which are like energy signals. And she almost gets run down on the road on her bike by Aziraphale and Crowley, who are in Crowley's big fancy car. Mm-hmm. And then to kind of make up for hitting her, they drive her back to the cottage. But she leaves the prophecies in Crowley's car. Now, Aziraphale, remember, he runs the bookshop. And he loves books, particularly old books. And also because he is an angel and kind of like is interested in the occult kind of things, I guess. He's actually been looking for the Nice and Accurate Prophecies. It's a very rare book. There's only the one published version of it. And so he is so happy that he's found the book. And this actually kind of helps him to locate where Adam is at this point. But he doesn't quite know it right away. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Anathema is so distraught that she's lost the book. She's like out and about looking for it. And she actually comes across Adam in the woods. And he's like, you're kind of weird, but I like you. And she's like, okay, you're kind of weird too, but I like you as well. And invites him back to her cottage for tea. And she talks to him about like all manner of pseudoscientific things, like mermaids and energy signals are destroying the environment, but also like the nuclear reactors and all sorts of weird things. Just like filling his head with new and interesting ideas that he's never experienced before. And so she loans him some witchy magazines, which he reads under his covers at night, like just consuming all this information. And when he finally drifts off to sleep, he's imagining all the nuclear power reactors disappear, and at the bottom of them are little lemon jelly beans. And because his powers are starting to occur, because he's met up with the Hellhound now, it actually makes it come true. So like there's this whole news story that like a nuclear reactor has shut down. Like it seems like it should have blown up, but like it's literally just an empty hole in the ground now with a little lemon jelly at the bottom of it. And no one knows how it happened. They can't figure it out. And then at the end of this episode, we meet the second horseman, which is Famine, who is known by his Earth name of Dr. Raven Sable.
Dr. Raven Sable.
Raven Sable. Yes. Moving on to episode 4, things are really starting to get weird for Earth, because with Adam's continued imagination and his continued powers, he's really able to change reality. So he actually makes Atlantis a real thing, and then he imagines into existence a hole coming all the way from China. And as we see, this hole coming all the way from China kind of starts to connect everyone together, because Newt Pulsifer had been sent by Sergeant Shadwell to go investigate into Tadfield into some strange happenings that he was hearing reports of. Anyway, Newt gets startled by the sudden appearance of this hole with some people like looking out of it, and he's like, oh no, people in the road. And he... Right? And he just, like, drives his car off the side of the road and crashes into a tree. Now, luckily, Anathema knew that this was going to happen thanks to a prophecy by Agnes Nutter. She says something like, a craft of robin's egg blue will crash, and you will meet a gentleman and treat him with the bark of a tree. And it turns out it's like they mean aspirin, because, of course, aspirin is a derivative of, what is it? Cottonwood?
I think so.
Aspen? Some sort of tree. Gosh, I feel like I should know that. Anyway. And then, of course, Newt's car was light blue color. So Anathema realizes that this was going to happen. She's all ready to meet him and like treats his wounds, brings him into her little cottage, everything, and they start kind of talking about the prophecies.
For some quick Googling, as an aside, it's willow tree.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was going to bug me if I didn't look it up.
Of course. Moving on here. Things are not going well for Crowley. Because another demon, Haster, who we met at the beginning, he'd actually been the one who was sent to the desert to retrieve the Antichrist, who we realized was the false Antichrist. And then he understood that Crowley had been lying about the child's whereabouts the whole time. So he goes on a mission along with his kind of cohort, Ligure, who we met, to fetch Crowley out of his apartment and drag him back to hell to be reprimanded. But smartly, Crowley actually kills Ligure with holy water that he keeps around just in case, and he does this cleverly by rigging up a bucket of the water on a door frame, so when he opens the door, it spills on him, like a classic prank, like Home Alone style, but it's holy water and it kills the demon.
Yeah.
And then he actually traps Haster in kind of the ether inside his answering machine. And so he's just like this little bit of like pixels or sound waves or whatever.
I forgot about the answering machine part.
Yes. And he's able to escape because a like telemarketer place calls Crowley, and so he's able to escape as they're recording a message through their sound waves, and he like comes through the phone and he devours the entire call center because he turns into cockroaches and it's kind of gross.
Nothing good happens from telemarketers releasing demons and all that.
Of course. Anyway, Aziraphale also not having a good time. So the Archangel Michael had actually been sent to bring him back to heaven for consorting with the enemy. However, he's able to escape back to his bookshop without being taken by the Archangel. While he's there, he attempts to contact God to plead, like, hey, do we really have to go forward with the war, please?
Right.
But he receives just, again, a voicemail system for God. And so he's just trying to leave a message, but Sergeant Shadwell, he was actually coming to visit Aziraphale because they've had, like, business dealings in the past going on, like, quote, witch hunts and whatnot together. Or rather, Aziraphale was asking Shadwell to, like, do witch hunty kind of things for him. But anyway, so Sergeant Shadwell overhears the voice of God and kind of looks in through the mail slot and sees this like heavenly light talking down at Aziraphale, and he therefore assumes that Aziraphale is a witch. So he bursts through the door, running towards Aziraphale with his finger pointed out. This causes Aziraphale to stumble back into the communication circle, which he then causes him to, like, dissipate, his body is destroyed, and he is sent back up to heaven without his human body. Now, Sergeant Shadwell is convinced that he now has the power to kill witches just with his little finger alone, which he is so pleased about. And then the final beat of this episode is we meet the final two horsemen of the apocalypse, which is pollution and death. Moving on to episode 5. Crowley, he knows, like, things are not going well. He tries desperately to contact Aziraphale, but he gets no answer, so he rushes back to the bookshop, but obviously Aziraphale is gone, and also the bookshop is on fire, because Shadwell had accidentally knocked over a candle as he was leaving. Back in heaven, Aziraphale is being difficult for the angels who are up there, because he proclaims that he doesn't want to join the war, and if they'd only let him please go back to Earth and, like, solve some things, they wouldn't have to even go forward with the war. But all the angels are like, no, we have to. We want to. It's part of the ineffable plan, and heaven is going to win. And Aziraphale, like, is having none of this, and he's able to kind of beam himself back down to Earth. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a body. He's able to appear to Crowley still, because Crowley's a demon and can detect his presence. So they kind of both have put together, finally, where the Antichrist is, and they agree to meet in Tadfield. There's actually an air base there where apparently the apocalypse is going to go down. So they're going to meet in the Tadfield air base once Aziraphale can find a body to inhabit. Going back to Madame Tracy, who is the medium neighbor of Sergeant Shadwell, she's holding a weekly seance And because of that, as you do, of course. And Aziraphale is able to jump into her body during this. Shadwell hears Madame Tracy and Aziraphale communicating with each other, and he says something like, "Oh my gosh, it's the Southern Dandy who I banished!" And, like, bursts in, and it's just Madame Tracy there. And then he, like, hears Aziraphale's voice coming from her body, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, it's a witch again!" But this time his fingered guns can't make anything happen, because they couldn't make anything happen to begin with.
Just gotta believe you can.
Right. Anyway, they're able to convince Shadwell, like, "Hey, come with us. We might have some real witches for you. Just come with us." They all jump on a little moped and putter away towards Tadfield, which, it's kind of funny. The moped is not going very fast, and they comment, like, "We could get there faster by walking." And so Aziraphale enchants the moped to, like, zoom away, which it's just kind of funny.
Zoom!
All right. Kind of keeping the story, there's lots of different players in here now. Going back to Tadfield to focus on Adam for a second. His hellish powers are now beginning to kind of consume him and overtake his humanity, and he's getting kind of scary, and his friends are like, "We don't want to play anymore, Adam. This isn't fun." But as they're leaving, he commands them to come back, and, like, they're forced to come back, basically. They don't have control over their bodies, and they, like, are complaining, and he's like, "Stop talking," and makes their mouths disappear. But then because of this, he's like, "Oh, this makes you guys no fun." So he just lets them go, and they, like, scamper away. And then poor dog also goes away too. Like, poor dog, he's not having fun with his master. And then because everyone has abandoned him, Adam suddenly realizes that this enormous power, it isn't good, and his humanity is able to kind of overpower it, and he realizes that he can actually use it maybe for good. So he makes up with his friends, and then they decide, let's go to the airbase as well, where this is all going to go down, and try and do something about it. So it's really funny. They all kind of take off on their bikes to Tadfield Airbase, and then we see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on motorcycles going off to the airbase, and then we have the little moped going off to the airbase, so everyone's just going by bike. Except for Newt and Anathema, who end up going on foot, and they sneak in the back. We'll get to that in a second, though. So now, everybody is basically at the base. Aziraphale has a witch hunter gun that Shadwell brought, and he's ready to aim it at Adam just to stop him, because he doesn't realize that Adam has changed at this point. He thinks he's still, like, in Antichrist mode. Madame Tracy's kind of takes over the body again and, like, doesn't let this happen. She's like, "We can't shoot a child." And because of this, Adam realizes that it's 2 people in one body, and he grants them each their own body back. So now Aziraphale is back as himself, as the Southern Dandy again. We now kind of jump back to Anathema and Newt. We see that they have infiltrated into the base and into the command room. Now, the 4 horsemen had set up that nuclear weapons around the world were going to be deployed, and based on a prophecy that Anathema had read, she knows that Newt is going to be the one to stop this. And he's like, "But I can't stop this. Every computer I touch breaks." And she says, "Perfect. So why don't you go ahead and fix the computer?" And so he does his very best to, quote, "fix the computer," and just, like, completely shuts down the system. So he stops all possibility of any nuclear war breaking out. It's perfect. Outside, both sides of Heaven and Hell have realized that Adam is not following the plan of Armageddon, and both sides are a little bit working together. We now have the demon Beelzebub and the angel Gabriel both trying to convince Adam that it's the right thing to do to be the Antichrist and play his role. But this fails wholly unexpectedly, and Satan himself then emerges from the ground to try to demand that Adam, his son, follow the plan for Armageddon. But Adam declares, "You're not my real father."
You're not my dad.
Like, yeah, because, like, obviously Satan hadn't been there for, like, any of his life. He didn't know he was the Antichrist at all. He just thought he was a regular kid. And this causes Satan to actually, like, lose his power over the situation, and he's banished back to hell.
Random aside, isn't it Benedict Cumberbatch who's voicing Satan too.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't
so.
know that.
I think it's Benedict Cumberbatch.
That's great. I hope it is. Let's Google that real quick. Yep.
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch. Satan goes back to hell, and kind of just at that moment, like emerging from where Satan had just been banished in the smoke, Adam's Earth dad shows up and says, "Adam, you're in big trouble." Apparently he knew Adam was at the airbase from a tip from like a nosy neighbor who saw the kids biking down to the airbase and like, they're up to no good. And so Adam's in big trouble.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, because of all of this, the war is unsuccessful. Both sides call it off for now. Everyone gets to go back to their own corners of the world, the universe, whatever.
Can't start the apocalypse, I'm grounded.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, for real. We actually see that Adam is stuck kind of just in his own backyard. But then Dog goes through this little break in the fence, and Adam says, like, well, my parents would be mad if you ran away, so I guess I have to go after you.
Uh-huh.
I guess they won't be too mad about me breaking my grounding for that. And so he goes after Dog, and they run back to meet their friends, and, you know, he's just living the life of a kid. We then jump back to where Aziraphale and Crowley have to answer to heaven and hell for actually having helped each other and consorted with the enemy. And so we see that they're both standing trial. First, Aziraphale in heaven is charged to be engulfed in flame, and then Crowley is to be dropped into a bath of holy water. However, when this happens, both survive without a scratch. As it turns out, we jump back to the duck pond, and we see them sitting there and kind of like morph into each other because they've had switched bodies. There was the final prophecy from Agnes Nutter was choose your face wisely. And it was a message to them that, hey, they should probably switch bodies for this whole trial thing. And so, of course, it was actually Aziraphale, the angel, down in hell, who was being doused in holy water, and then Crowley up in heaven being engulfed in flame, and it didn't affect either of them. Let's see. Then they discuss how it's not necessarily them for heaven and hell at this point. It's just Aziraphale and Crowley against the powers that be. They're kind of their own entities now. They don't really belong to either side. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the setup for what season 2 is going to be. And then kind of the final thing here, Newt and Anathema, they're actually going to get married. And as a wedding gift, kind of a lawyer, broker kind of guy, someone who's entrusted with wills, he brings by this box that has actually been passed down for generations, literally, and it's volume 2 of Agnes Nutter's prophecies. But Anathema decides that she doesn't actually want to read it. She destroys it instead because she doesn't want to be a professional descendant anymore. She wants to just kind of live her own life. So we don't know what the further prophecies are. And then finally, Madame Tracy and Sergeant Shadwell move in together and live happily ever after. So that's that.
That's that.
It's Good Omens.
Good Omens is some of my favorite lines. I love the one where, like, if you have a music track in your car for more than 2 weeks, it turns into a Best of Queens.
Yes. And that's another kind of funny thing is that a lot of the soundtrack is Queen songs.
Uh-huh. I was so happy that they were able to do that.
Yeah. It was a good get. Mm-hmm. It's actually, there's a really funny part as Crowley's trying to get to the airfield. The entire highway that encircles London somehow catches on fire as Armageddon is starting up. And so none of the cars can get through, but he just drives through with his Bentley. And they have the I'm in Love with My Car song by Queen, which is just so funny. And then as he's driving up to the cemetery at first, when we first meet the 2 other demons when he's picking up the baby, we hear the Beelzebub has a devil put us all for me, like that part of Bohemian Rhapsody. Mm-hmm. It's so good. It fits very, very well with all the different beats in here. So yeah, A+ soundtrack work.
Yeah.
I have a few questions for you.
Okie pokey.
So there are 3. Hopefully, since you've consumed the media, you know the answers.
We'll find out.
All right. So when we first meet Famine, what is he up to? Is it A, begging for food on the side of the road, stealing food from wealthy people, unveiling his new food concept, which is 0% nutrients, or driving a grocery delivery van off the side of the road?
He is has his fancy like dinner party with the 0% nutrient food where he's just starving people by making them think that they need to be thin.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see, next one. What two things was Aziraphale issued from heaven prior to being sent to Earth? And both of these things he lost. Was it A, wings and a copy of the 10 Commandments, B, a body and a sword, C, a sword and a suit of armor, or D, a body and a pair of wings?
I feel like he has the sword. It's one of the answers with a sword in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know which one.
Want me to say them again?
Yeah.
Okay, it was a body and a sword, or a sword and a suit of armor.
A sword and a suit of armor?
No.
It's body. Okay.
It was his body, because that was the thing when he got sent up by Shadwell. Like, he's reprimanded that he doesn't have his human body, and what could he have done with it?
I got it. Because the sword he gives to Adam, he gives the sword to someone so that they can fight off things, because it's got fire.
He gives it to Adam and Eve, so he loses that right from the beginning, basically. Yeah. He held on to the body for a good
a decent amount of time.
Billion years. Not billion. Yeah. A long time, yeah.
Yeah.
But then loses it right at the end.
As you do.
Yes. All right, and then finally, what is Crowley's pride and joy in his apartment? Is it his personal library, his personal bar, his houseplants, or his walk-in closet?
His houseplants.
Yes! He has the finest houseplants in London, because in the 70s he had learned about talking to plants, but he took it to the extreme and, like, threatened his plants.
Has, like, full-blown, like, anger out.
Yes, and, like, there was one plant where it had, like, one little brown leaf on it, and he took the entire thing and put it down the garbage disposal as a
warning to the other plants.
Yeah, and we see them all, like, trembling, and he comes back with his spray bottle, and he's like, if I see another brown spot on any of you, you'll get it. And, like, they're the most lush, beautiful things in the world, though. Alrighty, so
I was aggressively talk to my plants and get them to not die on me all the time.
No, you must talk lovingly to them. Alright, so that was Good Omens. It's a very fun piece of media. I truly love it. It's like right up my alley of kind of media that I like.
It's fun. It's a great bromance with the two. There's so many good like throwaway lines in the book or the series.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I had time, I would have got more in depth into all those lines, but we're on a tight schedule here. And I guess we didn't spoil everything, so you can still go watch it and enjoy it, even though you kind of know the plot.
Yeah, just the major story beats.
Yes.
All right. So, mid-podcast announcement is, remember, we have a Twitter handle. I don't know how one gets verified on Twitter, but it has our logo and then a picture of a rock in disguise.
Wait, so are we verified or not?
I don't know how to get verified on Twitter, but
okay, let's
figure
that out. Maybe
my goal is figuring it out.
Yeah, hopefully one day we'll be verified.
Hopefully one day. But you can tweet at us what you talk about with the word, or you can tell us if you knew what this quote was from. We're at Nerd of the Week Podcast, and you can use the hashtag Nerd of the Week or hashtag NOTW and chat with us that way. And into our quote. Are you prepared? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready to absorb the quote.
All right. Then let us pray for the deliverance of our new sheriff. Will the congregation please rise? I shall now read from the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Duck. And
okay.
I have a feeling some people might know
I have an idea. I can't quite think of the name of the thing I'm thinking of, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. And it'll be revealed at the end of the podcast. No worries.
I might have to do some quick Googling as you're talking at me.
All right. So, I am talking about Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever seen this cartoon?
Nope, but I've heard of it.
Okay. The reason I'm talking about it is one of Courage's main antagonists is Quack, or the duck, who is a French con artist duck who tries to score a fortune, and he likes to pick on Courage and Courage's family. And when the word came up, duck, the only thing I could think of was this duck. So that's where we got to. I did go back and rewatch it, and like the intro is just like so ingrained in the back of my head. I watched this so much as a kid, I don't even think without realizing it, that like I knew the beats for like the intro with the "We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog," and I'm like, oh god, I don't know how I've saved that information, but I've lost so much other information in my life.
Oh, goodness.
So are you aware of the premise of this show?
No, not at all.
Okay. So it is an American comedy horror-esque television series that aired on Cartoon Network. And it came out in the 90s. I think 1999 was the original. Yeah. Its original run was 1999 to 2002. And it follows the dog, Courage, who lives in the middle of nowhere with his owner, who found him as a stray dog, Muriel, and her crotchety old husband, Eustace. And it's basically like a series of shorts. They're like 11-minute episodes or so. And they usually like ran 2 at a time. And they're like little stories about Courage and just the shenanigans that he got up to. Specifically, the second episode is Dr. Quack, amnesia specialist. And then I'm going to talk about that one and Nowhere TV, because those are the main episodes that Dr. Quack is in. Okay. So Dr. Quack, amnesia specialist is the second episode of basically the pilot, because they came in like 2-bit series. So they literally live in the middle of like nowhere in like a stereotypical quintessential farmhouse with like a big windmill, and like that's it, and there's like literally nothing around them. And like it's maybe farmland, but like maybe Dust Bowl farmland where there's like nothing actually here. And you kind of the scene starts with Eustace is fixing up the roof, and Muriel comes out and is yelling at him that all of the noise he's making is gonna wake the neighbors, and then it like pans out and there's no neighbors anywhere because they literally live in the middle of nowhere. And so he just ignores her and keeps hammering, and then he accidentally hits one of the loose boards, and it flies down and hits Muriel on the head. To which Eustace and Courage help Muriel into the house, but she's got amnesia. She can't remember Eustace, she can't remember Courage, she doesn't know her own name, and Eustace, because he's kind of a jerk, and doesn't like Courage, takes this as I can kick the dog out finally because I don't want the dog in the house. And then he basically tells her that her job is just to make him dinner and do all the chores in the house, and like is a curmudgeon. And you're like, God, okay. So Courage sneaks back inside the house. There's a series of visual gags where he like throws himself into the house, and first he breaks through the window, and then the next time he goes through, he like breaks in like a Courage shaped hole in the wood. And there's the internet computer, because it was the 90s, that had like all the answers, and it was sassy and it talked back to him, and he was like messaging out like looking for someone to help with amnesia. Enter Quack, who is the con artist duck, and he like sees this message or intercepts this message in some capacity, and he, like the opening scene of him is him like staring at this giant diamond in like a Dutch angle, and they're like, can we make this guy look any eviler? And And then he just like, ooh, I can, if they don't remember anything, they don't know where their jewels are, and I can steal it. Mwahaha.
Oh, no.
And he goes and like shows up at the house and knocks on the door, and Eustace is like, I never asked for you to come. And then like Quack takes out this giant mallet and just bops him on the head with it, and then stuffs Eustace in a closet. And then Courage sees this and at least has the wherewithal to realize this means this guy's probably not a good character. He's actually a jerk. And Courage is like, oh crap, what did I do? So then Lake Quack comes in and he talks to Muriel and asks her where the jewels are, but Muriel's suffering from amnesia. She doesn't know where anything is.
Oh no. So
he goes around and starts like looking for her like the silverware and all their fortune, and like kind of the running joke is that these are two poor farmers out in the middle of nowhere. They don't really have a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps like air quotes torturing her by like tickling her with a feather. He sets her up on a like railroad track, like one of those like fake trains that you put around a Christmas tree.
Oh yeah.
And has it coming at her with a pie on it, so it'll hit her in the face with a pie if she doesn't tell him what he wants.
Oh, the ultimate torture.
The ultimate torture. And Courage gets like, I don't know how he explodes Lake Quack, but Lake Quack like sees him. There's like a bunch of pursuing chase scenes, and then like Courage gets like close and like puts like a bomb or something in the pie, and then it goes around and then like explodes next to Lake Quack. And it's just very, very strange shenanigans, 90s cartoon nonsense. At one point, like, he has a piece of stinky cheese because he's French, I guess, and he's, like, holding it in front of Muriel, and this freaking, like, out of nowhere, never explained, never addressed again, human-sized mouse just, like, punches in and then takes the cheese from him, and then Courage is like, hey, thanks, man, and gives him $1, and then the mouse, like, human mouse thing takes the cheese and goes, yeah, no problem, and then just leaves. I'm like...
I kind of like that it's not addressed again.
Right, we just, it was for the bit, and then we moved on, and now we're here. So, random series of shenanigans occur, and then Courage eventually like breaks back into the house to like message like I need the police, so he like emails the police, and then the computer being sassy is like, what do you want us to do about it? Like, there's a bad man in my house. Okay. And so there's a little bit of time with them like chasing around and more nonsense and shenanigans, and then the police burst in finally as like Courage is like laying on the ground after another explosion, because I think he got sucked into a vacuum cleaner at one point. And then the vacuum exploded because he like clogged the tube, because it was like one of those old vacuums with like the really long tube and then like the small cylinder thing. And the police, who has like this weird maybe Scottish accent, is like, oh yeah, look, Quack, we've been looking for you, and then they like pick him up and carry him out. And then at some point, because of the explosions, Muriel hit her head again and regains her memory and knows Courage. So then, like, everything's fine. And then we cut to the last scene where the police truck that took, like, Quack away has just exploded. And, like, Quack's wearing a police uniform. And he's like, they have not seen the last of the Quack. And so that's his debut episode.
Excellent.
It's so good. And then we don't see him again until season 2, in like the first half of season 2 for Nowhere TV, where it cuts open to a lottery, and Eustace's lotto numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which just make me chuckle every time. And they are watching the TV waiting for the lottery numbers to be revealed, and there's a knock on the door, and it's Quack pretending to be
no.
a TV repairman, and he's like, I can fix your TV, and Muriel is like, we don't need our TV fixed because they all had amnesia the last time he was here, so they don't remember Quack. But Courage does, and he's like hiding behind Muriel growling. And Quack gives them a business card and then climbs up on their roof and just saws their antenna off, and then their TV breaks because their antenna's not working anymore. And Muriel's like, oh, maybe we should call that TV repairman. And completely innocently, this guy didn't just show up saying, hey, I can fix your TV, and then your TV suddenly breaks. That seems a little sus. So then they they get a hold of him. He comes into the house and starts to, air quote, fix the TV. Courage gets kicked out because he's growling at him the whole time. And then Eustace goes with the line, you probably want to get paid now. And Quack is like, I'll get my payment in good time. And then just mwahaha, and leaves. And you're like, that's normal. So they go back to watching TV, and all of a sudden there's that hypnotizing spiral in the background with a picture of Quack, and he's being like, duck is good, dog is bad, duck good, dog bad.
Oh no.
And so he's hypnotized Eustace to go take care of Courage. And while Eustace is out, air quotes, taking care of Courage, Muriel then gets hypnotized too. Eustace ends up picking up a T-post and taking a swing at Courage, who catches it and then gets sailing off for miles into some water. And because they were, air quotes, playing fetch. And then the next scene is Courage has come back, and he's brought the T-post back because he's a good boy, and he opens the door, and Muriel's in this clown getup juggling, and Eustace is in a diver suit, and the Quack through the TV is telling them what to do, and they're gonna go to the lottery. Remember, that was at the beginning of this episode. They're gonna sneak into the lottery and steal the money. The lottery is in this castle thing that's guarded by the military for some reason, and it's just this square building with a huge metal posts around it, and a guard's posted outside, and Muriel is the clown, goes up to start distracting him and juggling and getting more and more outlandish with her tricks, and she has a catchphrase that lives rent free in my head of well, howdy, 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 how, and sometimes that just plays in the back of my head, and I'm just why is it here? And so while Muriel's distracting him, Eustace climbs down into the sewer and then breaks out into coming out of the ladies' bathroom through a toilet, I guess, and snuck through, and he's going through, and then they keep cutting back to Muriel and the guard, and he says things excuse me, but didn't that sound like someone in a wetsuit climbing out of the ladies' room to get into the building? And then Muriel's like, no. And he goes, oh, okay. And then the next bit, and then, didn't that sound like someone in a wetsuit stealing the bag filled with the lottery money? And Muriel's like, no. Because the lottery money is literally in a duffel bag on a pedestal in some rando room in this rando castle.
I can picture
it. That's because that makes the most sense. And Courage, who's been trying to stop all of this, had hidden himself in the money so that he could get carried out and try to help. And he pulls the alarm, and the security guard's like, isn't that the alarm going off when someone in a wetsuit trying to leave with the lottery money? And then Muriel, who has been juggling a boat and anchors and a car, just let him drop on him, and then they yeet to Eustace's beat up old truck to drive off. And Courage starts throwing money out the window to use as a trail for whoever's going to follow them. And the same police officers that came and arrested Quack last time show up, and they see the lottery building in just disarray. The guard is like passed out on the ground. There's like all this weird clown stuff everywhere, and then he just shows up and goes, well, nothing seems out of sorts here except for that trail of money. And then they just like follow after the trail of money. And they get to Quack's secret cave that he has to live out of now because Courage like ruined him or something like that. And he realizes that the only thing in the bag is Courage and $1. And then they go into a different room because Courage like runs away, and they're now in this room filled with like a mountain of TVs. And then they use it as like a TV fight. For some reason, stock like World War II footage and like Godzilla movies and stuff, like black and white movies they're having played, and then like lightning comes out of the Godzilla movie and like a cannonball comes out of it, and so they're like fighting each other with the TVs like directing them at each other.
Wow.
And then like the piece de resistance is that there's a pie, because that's what got Quack last time, comes out of a TV that has like a little like the classic 90s cartoon TNT that explodes. And then the police officer shows up again and arrests Quack for the second time. And then apparently arresting him wears off the hypnotism on Muriel and Eustace, and they go back to their house, and Courage is just like, oh, thank God, this is fine. And then the winning lotto numbers were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aww. Except for there was no money because it just recently got stolen, so Eustace won 17 cents in the lotto.
Aww.
And they're just ridiculous episodes, but like Quack is one of like the weirdest, greatest cartoon villains ever. And he fits the Ducks theme that I had for this week.
Yes. I think that was a lot more in line with the theme than mine was.
That's all right. The last little bit at the end there's a picture like as the closing credit goes, and it's just a TV of Quack and the prison's on fire behind him, and he gets to say that this isn't the last time you've heard of Quack.
Oh no. He shall ride again.
He shall ride again. Yeah, so that's my my dissertation on Quack. Which now that I've like talked about it a lot, I think it's a joke because like he pretended to be a doctor, and then we refer to like fake doctors as quacks. So I feel like there's like multiple layers to this joke that I'm just now understanding.
That's excellent. We all get to learn new things. Even you.
Even me. All right. So I have 3 questions for you on Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Okay.
First question is, what color is the main character, Courage? Is he a yellow dog, a red dog, a white dog, or a pink dog?
Oof. I always thought he was a yellow dog, but that might be some other cartoon dog I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
He's a pink dog.
Oh, okay. That was gonna be my second guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what yellow dog I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm thinking of cat dog.
Ooh, you might be thinking of cat dog. They're very yellow.
I've also not ever seen, but I've seen images of and thought that's
they're
weird.
very jaundiced with their weird.
I don't like it.
No, it's fair. Courage is a pink dog, and his breed is supposedly like a beagle mix thing. But who actually knows?
The notoriously pink beagle.
The notoriously pink beagle. He kind of looks more like a Mexican hairless, if I'm being honest. But mutt is a good classification for him, just the mixed breed dog.
Okay.
All right, question 2. Courage, the main character, was eventually voiced by Marty Grabstein, with Howard Hoffman voicing him in the pilot. Supposedly, how many actors actually auditioned for the role before they settled on Marty? 2, 100, 350, or 500?
Oh gosh, that seems like a lot. I think it was answer B.
100?
Yeah.
It was actually 350.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, apparently the director had a very specific voice set for Courage, and so like 350 or so actors auditioned for the role before they actually decided on one. Which seems like a lot for a cartoon character, but
yeah,
when you have a vision.
I guess. I hope it was worth it.
Well, I mean, he's a classic character, and they had like 4 seasons.
Okay.
All right, last question. Courage gets a feature direct-to-video film crossover with what other famous television dog? Is it Wishbone, Goofy, Scooby-Doo, or Snoopy?
This is a Cartoon Network production, right?
Correct.
Like Courage is? Okay, I think it's
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight out of nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Okay. I mean, I think I knew they were both Cartoon Network varieties of things.
I mean, context clues are valid. Yeah, like Quack makes an appearance. He's one of the villains of the movie. I don't know that I've ever actually watched it, but while I was researching Scooby-Doo or Courage the Cowardly Dog, I stumbled across this gem that I'm absolutely gonna watch.
And it would all be fine if it weren't for those meddling kids.
Those meddling kids. Scooby-Doo will be talked about in actual in-depthness because there's like 2 multiple timelines with Scooby-Doo. It's absolutely wild. So like
I did not know about this. Okay.
Yeah, I can go a little bit too much into depth with Scooby-Doo, so like probably will in one of these deep dives.
Okay. You'll educate me about all of it. I haven't really seen a whole lot of like kid cartoons.
Fair.
So, yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite theories with Courage the Cowardly Dog is actually all the random scary things aren't actually happening. It's just from his perspective because he's a dog. And so like they live in the middle of nowhere, but they actually just live in suburbia. He's just a dog with no concept of like space and
that
time.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like the monsters that show up are just like people coming by the house to fix the house, but like he's scared because there's some random stranger in his house.
That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Based on what I know about dogs.
Right. It was a valid one, which is why I wanted to bring it up.
That's good. I like that.
All right. So, that's all I had for Duck.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts to the quote? / would you like to listen to the quote again?
I'd like to listen to it again, but I think I do have a thought.
Okay. Then let us pray for the deliverance of our new sheriff. Will the congregation please rise? I shall now read from the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Duck.
Is it Blazing Saddles?
It is Blazing Saddles.
Yes!
It is the esteemed Reverend Johnson right before some dynamite shows up in the barn or the church.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've only seen the film once, but it clicked in my head.
It's a good one. And when I knew I had to come up with the word, I actually had the quote before I had what I was going to talk about.
Well, I mean, it could have been like me where you based your whole thing that you brought around the one quote.
You know, I almost did pick the Good Omens quote. I was thinking about it.
Well, that would be pretty close to if we both picked the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see if that happens for something upcoming.
Yeah.
Speaking of what's upcoming.
Oh, yes. Generator, can you please tell us what our next word is?
The next word is clock.
The tick-tock clock. Oh, man. Well, I've already talked about Wicked, so I'm going to have to come up with something else.
Yeah. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll be way past Christmas, so I don't really want to bring something like Christmas Carol or anything like that.
I mean, I feel like it's
kind of
valid.
my immediate thoughts. I mean, I guess it's not like a terribly Christmassy thing. I'll think about it. Anyway, that's about it for today.
That's it for today. Remember to tweet at us and let us know if you knew where the quote came from or what quote you would use with the word of the week. And if you enjoyed our podcast or we managed to get even a sensible chuckle out of you, please share with one of your friends.
Please do that.
Because that's how podcasts do. And with all of that, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And this has been Nerd of the Week. Remember, if you don't have anything cool to say, just play word association with the random word generator.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye!
We gotta work on that.